Wild like my daddy, but straightforward like my mama. Drink like granddad, smoke sluggies like the other. But granddad feels the guts. Hustler like my uncle JT or cousin Big B. I got big dreams like Jimmy Lee. And my aim is just doing it by daily beans. Keep a job like Uncle Kevin told me. Top notch player like Dave. And that caddy thing since the 80s slab. And corporate thug and political like Jack. Maybe rest in peace, but I've been taught a lot. See, it's hot head, wasn't scared to get money nor leave the beats and seeds. Can't play me like I'm a pawn in the game. Chess, jokes look like Big Kenny and Ski. G like Jarrell, Journey. Trigger happy, thinking about my family, alone like my granny. Lula, chuckling, giggling, hunching my shoulders like my daddy's and the lead. Routed like them Tyson seeds, and spiritual like rewards. A go-getter like Arian, a religious, romantic career like no one, ever. Also like Uno, my soldiers, untold story like my bro, Deep Bird. And cousin Ray Knight can get aim like Herb and freak nasty like John and Gene. I can be man, it's respectful, tapping to a different breed. I can't wait to get a load of me. Draped in luxury, memory and lessons from ancestral pillars, legacy family. We are unapologetic, pain with a red mentality. We are unapologetic, pain with a red mentality.
Hey, Arian, thanks for hopping on. Alright, we're about to get started. Right. Hey, champions, welcome to tonight's edition of the Motivation to Elevation Facebook Live podcast. For the month of March, as I've stated on the last two podcasts, this is Women's History Month. So this is Ladies' Choice. And so last week, I talked from a topic basically just off the cuff because I did not receive any suggestions as far as topics to tackle. So I actually received a suggestion tonight, which is the topic. And I just decided to title it this particular topic. Hey, what's up, Dorian? Thanks for hopping on, bro. And I appreciate your posts, man. Keep them coming. Basically, as I bring this podcast to a close, I received a text message. I'm not sure what, I don't remember what, Friday. I received a text message Friday from a supporter of the show, and they actually gave me a suggestion. So before we dive in, I gotta do what I normally do. For those who don't know, I have written a book. It is entitled Love Me or Hate Me, My Journey from Motivation to Elevation. It is available now. You can order it. It's on Amazon, but I prefer that you go to my website and order it at www.lovemeorhateme.org. Again, that's www.lovemeorhateme.org. Hey, sis, thanks for hopping on. Appreciate it. With that being said, let's dive in. So tonight's topic is Black women supporting their Black men, the difference between caring and nagging. And so I titled it this particular topic because of the text message that I got. So I'm going to read to you the text message that I got, and then I'm looking for participation. I'm going to speak, but for those that want to chime in, please leave comments in the comments section. Okay, so the text message, I received this from Friday. So I got to shout out to Netta Clay for sending this text message to me. She said, I'm sending this message as a suggestion for your upcoming podcast. My question or suggestion is about support. How does a Black woman support her Black man when she notices potential and talent, but he's either not seeing it or scared of taking that next step, or in some cases may not know where to begin? Some men see some women as nagging at times when all we want is for the man to stand up and apply himself to complete his goals. How do we as women assist our guy with creating and discussing goals when we can be told that we're trying to force the guy to do whatever it is. This is coming from my personal experiences with partners and other ladies I've talked to over the year. Can you include the wage gap? As I know some men are intimidated by a woman that makes more than them. I don't know if intimidated is the right word, but more along the lines of the guy feeling that he maybe doesn't have a day in the household or a say in the household because he's unable to contribute as much. I'm trying to gather my thoughts as I type, but let me know if you have questions. So that's the gist of tonight's topic. And so first off, I love how she didn't use words that would easily make men or women put their defenses up. And some of those terms are such as every or all, because you would not believe how many times I get on social media, and I don't even get on social media as much as I used to because sometimes it's very draining and sometimes I just don't feel like going back and forth with people because of certain words that they say. In many cases, you should not use the word all at all. You should not, especially when it comes to referring to a male or a female, because there's always exceptions to the rule. And what I love about the text that she sent me was that at no point did she ever say all, except when she said, I hope all's well. But she never said all men, all women. She never said every man, every woman. She never said those words, because as soon I know me as a man, if I see some stuff like that, or if I see you men or you women, as a man, I'm going to take offense to that. My defenses is going to go up simply because of the fact that when you say certain words, your intent might not be to include every person. But when you say all men, and I know that doesn't apply to me, I'm going to challenge you on that. I have the right to tell you that you're wrong because it does not apply to all men. It doesn't apply to all women. And so no man that I met, and it's men and women watching, no man or woman that I've ever met likes to be put in the same category as someone else. So you're better off saying many, you're better off saying some, you're even better off saying most. But when you say every, when you say all, we have a right, as someone who is the receiver, we have the right to call you out on it. We have the right to challenge you on that because we summarily disagree. So she said that she asked the question, how does a black woman support her black man when she notices potential and talent, but he's either not seeing it or scared of taking the next step, or in some cases may not know where to begin? And I'm going to speak to you from this standpoint because I've been at that point where, especially when it came to business, where I've said this before, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. So when someone steps out, decides that they know that it's time for them to step out of their comfort zone, it can be very scary, especially when you know that you have somebody depending on you. When it's not just about you anymore, or when it's just not about you, period. It can become very scary. But the thing about it is, they say death and life is in the power of the tongue. So the thing about it is, the best way that you can do it is to encourage him. and if you're not familiar with the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, find out what his love language is. And I'm saying his because the topic is black women supporting their black men. And the question was asked by a black woman in reference to black men. You have to know how to speak your mate's love language. You have to. And they have to learn how to speak your love language. If you don't know what your love language is, you need to find out. If you do not know what your mate's love language is, you need to find out, because that's one of the things that can save you a lot of heartache. Because the reason that most relationships fall apart, if it boiled down to it, if you strip away all the layers of distrust, if you strip away all the layers of maybe it's infidelity or whatever, it's lack of communication. It's lack of effective communication. You got to be able to communicate with each other. And it's crazy because I don't know if you all saw the video that I shared on Facebook this afternoon. But this to me was a clear example of why communication is so important, and how when you don't know how to speak each other's language, problems are just going to arise. And I posted it about 4 to 5 hours ago, so it's on my wall. So once we finish, you can take a look at it and, leave your thoughts. But the reason that I decided to share it is because of the caption that the person put. And they said that there are so many opinions about why women end up with men who are below their pay grade or level. But the truth of the matter is, men started leaving the homes and there became a disconnect in communication. Now, I agree with the fact that there became a disconnect in communication, but that's not entirely the reason why relationships are jacked up as they are now. It's more than just men started to leave the home. See, you can't make certain statements. You could have said many men started leaving the homes, and that would be valid. But as someone who came from a 2-parent household, that's not entirely true. You can't say, and even when you say men, you got to be clear, especially on social media, because you gotta say what you mean and mean what you say. You can't say every man started to leave the home, because they didn't. You can't say that, and you just can't say that that's the only reason. Yes, that is the factor, but that's not the total factor. Another reason is because some women don't know their worth, or they don't recognize their worth. And so the way that most women that I've known, because most of my friends are female, most of the people I grew up with are female, you got to speak life into them. And the thing is, the same thing is true about men, because many times you have a lot of men, especially black men. We already got strikes against us because we're black men. Especially like someone like me, dark skin. The darker you are, the more strikes you have against you. I didn't make the rules. Do I think that is fair? No, I don't. But is it a valid statement? Yes, it is. Because I couldn't tell you how many times I've been racially profiled, and yet I've never been arrested. I've never been in jail. I don't smoke. I don't do any type of drugs. I don't drink, etc. Hey, Tornado, thanks for hopping on. Hey, Angela, thanks for hopping on. And I already gave you a shout out, Tornado, because I'm talking about your topic. So with that being said, the way that a black woman supports her man is not only do you have to speak life into them, but they have to understand that you are not their enemy. Black women are not a black man's enemy. I'm going to say it again. Black women are not a black man's enemy. That man has to feel that you have his back. And I know for all the women that are watching, I know that you all have your man's back. Because I know many of you. I know many of you personally. And I've talked to you all. And there are single women on here. There are married women on here. So I know that y'all have that man's back. But just like there are times where you know if your man loves you. You know that your man loves you. But there are times where you need to hear it, because we don't know what's going on with you. We're not mind readers, and you shouldn't have to be mind readers either. So that's where the communication comes in. You gotta tell them, regardless to if you don't feel like it at times. You gotta be able to speak life into that man. You got to be able to encourage him. You got to be able to let him know that no matter what, I trust you to be the head and not the tail. I trust you that you're going to, lead us to the promise, because I've said repeatedly that behind our feelings is nothing, but behind every principle is a promise. And so with that being said, he has to know, because one thing as a black man, especially if you're someone that is not in full-time entrepreneurship, so you have to go to a job, we catch hell on a job. And there are many times, and I can definitely say this about my own job, where we're in a position where we feel like our voice does not matter. The last place that we should feel like our voice does not matter is in our relationship. And the reason I say in our relationship is because everybody is not married. So I can't say it's in our home, because you could be in a relationship and don't live with your mate. Because again, I'm just being realistic. Some people are in a relationship, yet they don't live together. So that's one of the things. But then I understand that there are some who are in relationships, they're not married, and they live with their significant others. Hey, this is a no judgment zone. I'm being honest, and hey, Pastor, thanks for hopping on. And Mother Hurt, I will call you after I finish. I did get your message, but obviously I'm kind of doing something right now. So I got you. With that being said, I hope that answers that part of the question. And then another thing is that even if he's scared, again, by knowing that he's not in this alone, by knowing that he has that support, tell him you got this. And even if you fall short, I'm not going to leave. We're in this together. I believe in you. You don't know what that does to a man when a man hears that from his woman, who hears that from his half, from the co-pilot of his plane. You don't know what that does to a man when he knows that regardless there are some times that he wants to do something and his boys don't even support him. But if his significant other, if his lady, if his wife, if his spouse has his back and has his support, if he has that support, that man can feel like he can move mountains. So you got to know. And there are times, because I can tell you, there are times where I don't feel like saying I love you. I don't. And there are times where It's necessary because it's not about me. It's not about me. There are times where it's about me. There are times where it's not about me. There are times where it's about you. There are times where it's not about you. But it's absolutely necessary. Because life can undoubtedly punch us in the mouth, male or female. So we got to know that we're in each other's corner. We got to know that we're not in this alone. And that's why it's important to have effective communication. That's why it's important to pray together, or to meditate together, or just to be able to sit down and be able to reason together. Because the truth of the matter is this, and this is one of my rules that I have. You don't have to agree on everything. And if you're with someone that requires you to believe everything that they believe, you in for a world of hurt. And the reason I say that, not only do I say that because of personal experience, but I'm saying that because that's not realistic. That's not reality. You should be able to agree to disagree, because you all are two different people. And just because you become husband and wife, and yeah, technically you become one, but that doesn't mean that you lose yourself. That doesn't mean that you lose what makes you special, because that mate is supposed to be able to support you without losing who they are. And I know that the married people that are watching can back me up on that, because there are people that are watching, I know, that's been married for 16 years, that have been married for over 20 years, that have been married for over 30 years, that are watching. Plus, I watched my parents who were married for almost 35 years, were together for over 40 before my father passed in 2016. So I know what I'm talking about. Disagreements are going to happen, but it's about respect. It's about communication. And it's okay to have those disagreements, as long as it doesn't throw a wedge into the commitment that you all have made. And with that, I'm really kind of talking to the married folks. And then, Tornado, you also said, make sure I didn't lose my place. Okay, you said some men see some women as nagging at times, when all we want is for the man to stand up and apply himself to complete his goals. And that's valid. That's fair. Because many times, especially in 2018, and Pastor, we was just talking about this Sunday, there are a lot of males who are not being men. And the reason I say that is because they're not standing up. And it makes me think back to the last podcast I did, to where it is damaging for a man to hear a woman tell him that he needs to man up, especially when she doesn't have a clue what it means to be a man. And I said last week that that's the same as me telling a woman that she needs to woman up or be a woman. I have no idea what it means to be a woman. I don't want to know what it means to be a woman. And that's just what it is. So that's where the communication comes in. He has to be able to know that you care, but you don't nag. Because there are times where, even though it may seem like a man's not listening, he's listening. But when you keep repeating the same thing over and over again, and this is just something to keep in mind. And this is for parents who have children. When you tell your child to do something, and I can kind of speak to this because I was a little kid once upon a time. There's a difference between the way a parent tells their child to do something the first time and then when they have to repeat themselves. When you feel like you have to repeat yourself, your intention might be that you don't mean any harm. But when you say something repeatedly, subconsciously, you start to say it with an attitude. Well, here's the thing. If a man keeps hearing the same thing over and over again from his mate, and it's in the manner of it coming off as an attitude, and I understand that's not your intent, but it doesn't always come across as that. It comes across as an attitude. Sometimes it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. There are times where it is what you say. It can be received as you are nagging. So again, everything that you are saying to him can be valid. But it's in the tone that you say it, because it gets to a point where his defense will come up and he's not going to be receptive to it because he's tired of hearing your mouth. But again, that's where the effective communication comes in, because when you've been with your mate for a certain period of time, there are times where it's okay to just give them a little space to process. But one thing that you don't do is don't go to sleep mad. Don't go to sleep mad. And the thing about it is, on the other hand, it gets to a point where you have to realize, that man has to realize that, and I kind of put this fault on the way society teaches us, because society preaches independence, but it's kind of hard to preach independence and you're in a relationship, because a relationship is about teamwork. And even I'm just reading what my pastor said. He says sometimes a woman has to realize they have a bum, because a real man don't mind having a woman helping or encouraging him to move forward. You're absolutely right. And the reason being is because as that man moves forward, that means that the relationship is moving forward, and that the goals that you all set down and talked about, the dreams that you all have, you're getting closer and closer to those dreams becoming a reality. And understand, you're not in this alone. Fellas, you're not in this alone. And you can't make that woman feel like that she's on an island, or you can't come across as you don't want her help. Because, and I know we talked about this Sunday, Pastor, a wife or a woman is designed to be the help meet. If you're doing everything and she has no input, you don't value her input or anything, why is she going to stay? And on the flip side, independent women, if you're doing everything and you come across as if I really don't need you, why should that man stay? So it's something to think about on both sides. So I don't want this to just be one-sided. I try to look at it from both standpoints, because again, I have conversations with a lot of females, because for some reason, I don't know, because the gift in me or just the God in me, people feel comfortable coming to me to talk or get input, and it comes across as if like I'm their sounding board, which I don't have a problem with. But I also am going to tell you what you need to hear and not necessarily what you want to hear. So think about this. Let me scroll up. Okay. And then you ask, Tonetta, how do we as women assist our guy with creating and discussing goals when we can be told that we're trying to force the guy to do whatever it is? It kind of goes along with what I was just saying about the independence thing. You have to reaffirm to him that he got this, that he doesn't have to be afraid to launch into the deep, that he doesn't have to be afraid to step out into uncharted waters, because you're not going to tuck tail and run. You're not going to tuck tail and run when stuff gets hard, or if he decides to step out there and it doesn't go the way that he anticipated, or it doesn't go the way that you anticipate. Because at some point, when you stand before that minister and you take those vows have to mean something. For better or for worse has to mean something. And unfortunately, we live in a society, we live in a time where for better or for worse doesn't mean what it used to mean. It's like it means for better or for worse, but as long as I do what, or as long as he do what I expect him to do. And many times we are someone, we're in a situation where we have unrealistic expectations. We equate expectations with standards. Standards are important, because you gotta have a standard, because if you don't have a standard, you're going to be walked over. But the expectations part, because nobody is perfect. And he has to be affirmed that you're not going to leave. You're not going to leave if it gets tough, because I don't care how long you've been in a relationship, whether you're just starting out, whether you got a couple years in, well, whether you got decades in, problems are going to come up, whether it's children involved or not. Problems are going to come up. Life is going to slap you in the mouth. It's going to punch you in the mouth. But he has to, but the worst thing that you can do is to have that spouse or that mate feel like you're punching them in the mouth as well. And I'm just being real with you, because when life hits us, we got to be able to run to the arms of the one who loves us, to quote, escape. We got to be able to have that escape. We got to be able to know that if nobody has my back, or nobody nobody supports me, that my mate supports me. And I know, and ladies, I know you support him. But you still gotta tell him that we're in this. Just like women expect men to show it. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to show it. But that does not mean that saying it is not important, because you have to do both. And that's just like, and for those who are married, and I'm almost done. For those who are married, you can attest to this. Before you got married, you all went on dates. If my memory serves me correctly, you still have to date your mate. even when you get married. The dating shouldn't stop. The dating cannot stop. You still have to have those date nights. You still have to. And I understand that you have a household, you might have some kids to deal with, but y'all gotta have y'all time in. Because the first ministry is at home. You got to take her home. And the way to take her home is to have that communication. Well, what's the best way to have that effective communication? Turn off all distractions. That means get off of Snapchat, get off of Instagram, get off of Facebook. Be able to look at each other's eyes. Turn the phone off if necessary, or at least put it on silent and put it away from each other. So that way it's about you. It's about you two. So that way you can be able to reconnect if you have experienced a disconnection. And there was a time where I used to have date nights every 2 weeks, and then it changed to every week. So I know what I speak of. And I'm telling you, it makes a difference where you all can sit down and talk about what lies ahead and talk about what's absolutely necessary. You know, what's the plans going forward? And you got to be able to have plans, because a woman needs to know where they're going, where you're leading them, where you're going. And too many times it's hard for a woman to submit to that man if he's not communicating, if she doesn't feel like if she doesn't feel like you value her support, or if she feels like you don't support her, or she doesn't support you, or she can't say anything to speak life into you. And so that's something that is very important. So you got to be able to have those conversations, and you got to be able to challenge them, because the thing about it is there are certain things that you got to require, ladies. There are certain things, because some men operate better when their back is against the wall. Now, should it have to come to that? No, it shouldn't have to always come to that. But just like a diamond is formed under intense pressure, so it is when it comes to a man getting what is inside of him out. Because think about it. I think, and I was talking to my pastor about this Sunday, that I think my generation was the generation to where there was a shift between a man not showing emotion, because if you show emotion, you're considered soft. And then to where now a man or a male shows either too much emotion, or he shows emotion to the point where he act like he's a woman. But I feel like my particular generation was where that shift occurred. So I could see both ends, because my father didn't really show emotion. And so, but with me, you don't have to guess how I feel. And then the thing about it is, if I don't want to be bothered right now, I will tell you, I don't want to talk about it right now. But one of the things about me is I don't like going to sleep mad. So that means by the end of that day, we're going to have that conversation, because I refuse to go to sleep mad. So that's something that you may want to take into consideration as well, when to have that conversation, because going to sleep mad, it messes with you subconsciously. A lot of times that's where those nightmares occur. And I just know this just from doing studies and stuff. So that's something to take into consideration. And then finally, You said, can I include the wage gap? Yeah, I can talk about that because I have been in a relationship where my mate made more money than me. The difference is, but the crazy thing about that was, though she made more money than me, she sucked when it came to money. Here's the thing, and this is why I fault society in general, because society now puts so much emphasis on independence. And I'm reminded of, what show was that? Family Matters. I'm reminded of, there was an episode of Family Matters where, so mind you, this is going back to the 90s, where this has been an issue. Well, I saw this as an issue, to where there was an episode where Carl was the quote unquote breadwinner, but Harriet was not a homemaker. She had a job. And then it got to a point where she elevated on the job to the point where she started making more than Carl. And Carl had a problem with it. So what he decided to do was take up a second job. And on that second job, he realized that he made like $17 more than Harriet. Harriet didn't care. But for Carl, for that man, it bothered him because for some reason it made him feel like he wasn't doing his part, or he felt like he was less of a man because this woman was making more than him. Here's the thing about that. And I see this a lot in a lot of relationships right now, where a man feels threatened by a woman that makes more money than him. But here's the thing. If you know who you are, if you're comfortable in your own skin, and if you know what you bring to the table, if you know that I can look at it a couple ways. Number one, if that woman makes more money than you, fellas, then clearly she's not with you for your money. So, because she makes more money than you. So you can't accuse her of being a gold digger. That's one way you can look at it. She's not with you for your money because either A, you don't have none, or B, you don't have as much as she does. But you have to get to a point where at the end of the day, who cares? Because if you're in a relationship, relationships, last I checked, had to be about building. It has to be about building. And there are some points. Let's say you lose your job, fellas. Let's say you lose your job. Let's say you get laid off from your job. That's when you really know, because stuff comes up. That's when you really know how much that woman is there, how much that woman is there for you, and the reason that she's really there. Because if you lose your job and immediately she leaves, number one, you weren't meant to be with her anyway. Number two, that says a lot about her. But it doesn't make you less of a man. And the thing about it is, a man has to feel like he's a man, even though he should already know that. But just like there are times where a woman needs to feel like she's worthy, she's worth it, that she matters, a man has to feel that too. And so, fellas, tell your woman how beautiful she is. especially during those times where it might be that time of the month or where she wakes up and she could just have a ponytail and she doesn't feel like she's being her best or she doesn't look her best. So what? Because especially if you're married to her, I'm quite sure you've seen her without makeup. I'm quite sure that you've seen her natural hair. And I'm thinking about like during this time, I wish my father was still alive because of the fact that my mother had a recent accident where, you know, now she lost all her hair. And I know that for many women, their hair is their glory. And so sometimes some women feel like they're not their best if their hair is not together. My mom doesn't have any hair, but I felt like had my father still been alive, my father would tell my mother that yes, you lost your hair, but that doesn't mean that you're not beautiful. You gotta be able. He has to know that you have his back, and I understand that. I know you have his back, but there are times where he feel like you don't. Just like there are times where you feel like he does, where you feel like he doesn't love you, or he doesn't have your back. There are times, we all have those times. There are times where, and that's just being realistic, because there are times, yes, you love your mate or you love your significant other, but there are times where you just don't like them. And that could be where, because you just had an argument with them, or they said something or did something where you don't disagree with them. You have those moments, but don't let those moments trump everything that you have or everything that you're setting out to do. Because if that man is not beating you, calling you out your name, if that man ain't gave you some type of STD or something like that, you are ahead of the curve. I mean, you are ahead, because you wouldn't believe how many conversations I'd have had with ladies, and they feel like they're wasting their time. And to me, unless you ask my opinion, I'll just be there to listen. It's only until you ask that I'll speak on it, because technically it's none of my business. But at the same token, it has to get to a point where, like, if you see something on social media is fair game. It's fair game because it's on social media. It's public. So if you see something that's not right, then you have the right to speak on it or address them or go to them in love, because how you do anything is how you do everything. And be able to have that tough conversation, because you got to be, every conversation is not going to be good. Every conversation is not going to be, it's not going to put a smile on your face. But in the end, it has to lead you to where you all want to go. And you got to be able to go there together, because if you're not willing to go there together, then why are you in that relationship? Just saying. And even if, and as I wrap up, even if that man does not feel like he's a man, then encourage him to talk to other men. Because sometimes hearing it from a man hits home, just like hitting it from a female hits home. And sometimes that's why it's okay to have a friend of the opposite sex. And I know sometimes that becomes an issue, but to me, the only way that it is an issue Because you can have friends, or you should have friends of the opposite sex. The only time it should become an issue is if that friend starts saying something derogatory or disrespectful about your mate, or it can become complicated if you have been romantically linked with that particular friend. Then it could become an issue. But if y'all ain't never been involved, if y'all ain't never, as I like to say, assume the position, so to speak, it should not be an issue. But even if that's the case, and that person has an issue, then it could be because that person has some type of insecurity. And it's not your fault, but that's something that they have to deal with. Because otherwise, the choice is going to be either they're going to have to deal with it, or they're going to have to let it go. But either way, you're going to be all right. So I hope I did my best, and I went way over time, but I did my best to answer what you text me. And I trust that it was of value to everyone that's watching. I appreciate the comments. And the thing about it is, I'm looking at your comment, Angela, when you say, yes, I unapologetically need a husband. We live in a day and time where people feel like saying the word need is a bad word. But the thing is, we weren't designed to be alone. We operate better when we have a partner, when we have a counterpart, when we have someone that complements us, because we weren't designed to do everything. That's not what we were designed to do. There are things that women do better than men. And I can say that, and I'm a man. I'm 100% man. There are things that women do better than men. And it don't make me less of a man to say that or feel that way. But there are things that men do better than women. And it should not make that woman feel less of a woman. And if it does, then that's an insecurity on that other party. So to me, saying need is not a bad thing. It's not. If you a man, it's no shame in saying, I need a woman. Because there are certain things that women can do and can get done more effectively than a man can. And vice versa. So at the same time, but the thing is, that woman has to feel like she's not only a part of the team, that she has to feel like she's valuable. She has to feel like, and it's one thing to carry have a woman around and put her up like she's a trophy. That's not healthy. But the thing about it is, you have to get to a point where that woman has to feel valuable. And if you're on a team, y'all got to be co-MVPs. Because your input has to matter just as much as her input, fellas. It has to. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Because, as I wrap up, a man with dreams requires, and I'm saying requires, because requires is a stronger word than needs. A man with dreams requires a woman with vision. I'm going to say it again. A man with dreams requires, not just needs, requires a woman with vision. A woman has an innate ability as a nurturer to help that dream or help that vision come true. She has that ability. It is second nature. That's why women are better nurturers than men. That's natural. That's their natural design. But no leader gets to the top without someone to lead. So you have to be able to know when to lead. And it's no shame in knowing when to let that woman take the lead. Because in the end, it's going to benefit the team. And it ain't taking anything away from you being a man. It means that you're smart in saying that, yes, I need help. And yes, I know I can't do this alone. And knowing that there are going to be things and there are going to be points that she makes that will resonate and get you all to the ultimate goal faster than you trying to do it all by yourself. With that being said, I'm going to call this a wrap. Thank you so much to everybody that has stayed on for the duration. I've never done one this long. But I wanted to make sure that I answered everything as effectively as possible. And I hope that I did. And if you hopped on, I'm about to put the replay up. But thanks so much for tuning in. If you got value from it, feel free to like, comment, and share this with someone that needs to hear it. Because I feel like I feel privileged to be able to talk about it, because many times men get criticized for not saying how they feel or not saying what's on their mind. I'm a man that you ain't never got to worry about that. If you ask me, because chances are I have an opinion about it, and sometimes it's written on my face. And so if you want to know, I'll talk about it. And it may not always be what you want to hear, but I'm going to be honest about it, and I'm going to be unapologetic about it. So with that being said, I'm going to call it a night. Again, if you have not already done so, make sure you leave a suggestion, ladies. This is Women's History Month. It's Ladies' Choice for the remaining podcasts that I have for the month of March. And if you have not already done so, make sure you grab a copy of my book, Love Me or Hate Me, My Journey from Motivation to Elevation. It is available at www.lovemeorhateme.org. Again, that's www.lovemeorhateme.org. As always in life, you have two choices. You can make moves or you can make excuses, but you most certainly cannot do both. It's yours truly, Arian Tyson, signing off. Peace.